Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Changing the Narrative with me, your host, Jay Shakur. Today, I'm talking to Charles. He is a pastor, he's an advocate, an activist in the Chicagoland area. He's from my city, Chicago. I'm excited to talk with him. I have to admit, the quality of the video or the quality of our conversation, the content rather, the quality of the content is amazing, fantastic. How I got that, not what I would always like, not the most optimal thing, at least on my end, as it concerns video. I was at work doing my day job. I'm a reporter reporting in the newsroom, and this was the time that we scheduled the interview, and we had to get it done this day. But I will have him back very, very soon for a more elongated discussion about manhood and masculinity and all those things. But for today, we're talking about policing, police reform, policing in the United States of America. A very enlightening conversation. Let me tell you, if you come to this conversation on one side, defund the police, all police are bad, or you come from the side of all cops are good and leave our police alone. If you come from either side, this conversation, I think, will help you get to the middle and understand what both sides are saying and what are some feasible and viable solutions. I thought this was a great conversation. It changed my perspective on a lot of things. It opened my eyes to see other sides and other perspectives that I probably wouldn't have seen or understood had I not talked to him. I think this is going to be a very enlightening conversation. So you should like this, you should share this, you should tell others about it. Once you watch it, I'm pretty sure you'll love it. But here's another thing about Charles. He is not just your Instagram activist or Instagram person that just takes pictures at the protest. He does the work, and I appreciate that. And he gives much in this interview about his perspective and his approach to policing and police reform in the United States of America. A great conversation. We will be doing another one of these very soon. Better quality, of course, but listen to what is being said, especially from what Charles is saying. I don't think I add too much to the conversation. I think it is all Charles. Listen to what he says, what he has to say, and his ideas. Tell me what you think. I'm interested to know what you think. You can comment, you can share, you can email me. Whatever you guys think about this show, this particular episode, I'm interested in knowing. So please tell me. Please comment, please like, please share. I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy this conversation with Charles about policing and police reform. So, from my research, you're the founder of Urban Reformers, correct?
No, so I'm one of the founding members. Yes. So definitely one of the founding members, not the founder, but definitely a part of that crew, that team, of building it up.
So, what is Urban Reformers? Tell us about that. Also, tell us about you. What do you do?
For sure. So Urban Reformers is a creative coalition of young adults who have a passion for justice, but then also come from a spiritual side of it in terms of spirituality, with Christian faith-based. And we believe in holistic restoration within the city of Chicago. Our goal is to be able to reach each of the 77 communities within Chicago. However that looks like, whether it be small, whether it be big, we want to have impact in each of those communities, and also representatives to be able to represent us in those communities. We believe that's how justice can be done best, is through holistic restoration, and people from their own places who live in that area to be able to do work in their vicinity. So that's our mission and goal. We started last year. Man, it's crazy. I want to say we initiated it June 2020. So we've been going on a little bit over a year now. And it's just been great, man. It's been awesome. We've been doing a lot of work in the city of Chicago. I'll mention some of the stuff today concerning police reform. that we've been a part of in the city of Chicago specifically. And so we just really are passionate about what we do, but then we're serious. We're not about the hype. We definitely put in the work, and we're meeting, I call it proactive justice, not to be reactive to the next thing that may happen, but to be proactive on things like that. So that's who we are. If anybody's listening today, for sure, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook, Urban Reformers Chicago. Check us out, see what we're about. Check out our website as well. And I am Charles DeLoach III. I am a native of Harvey, Illinois, raised in Chicago Heights, Illinois, currently reside in Chicago, Illinois, on the east side of the city, southeast side of the city, the low end part of the city. I am currently the assistant pastor at Chicago City Life Center Church in the Inglewood, Washington Park neighborhood of Chicago. Also a high school mentor with CPS schools, TFI, the Fellowship Initiative. We do a lot of things with males, men of color who are in high school in Chicago. I love to train, work out. I play football, coach football as well. So I'm a sports head in that aspect. And that's who I am. I come from, I graduated, if anybody wants to know, I live at Nazarene University, 2 degrees, criminal justice for my undergraduate, and then urban ministry and leadership for my master's. And here I am today.
It sounds like you've dedicated your life basically to this, with the college for everything. What, particularly in the city of Chicago, that you're brought now to just the country as a whole, but what do you feel having, studied this, worked in this field, professionally, spiritually, however you want to phrase it? What do you think is the most pressing issue concerning justice or some sort of social justice, particularly in the city of Chicago?
Yeah, so I believe, and I'll say this every day, all day, we are Chicago, and people who know Chicago know about the city. Chicago is very segregated by way of sections. People who know Chicago know about cities. So in terms of that, you have a lot of segregation based off of the neighborhoods. And there are, in terms of that, you have a lot of social justice. There are different treatments of police, law enforcement in each of those neighborhoods. But I also want to speak to treatments of in the city of Chicago that we're experiencing. I'm a big believer, but I also want to speak to anything that is unjust and that is unjust in any stature, whatever that looks like. In Chicago, we're facing a pandemic of gun violence that is unjust, and until we, as people who live in these areas, who are part of these crimes, who know what's going on, who don't want to speak up, we want to continue to face a plight of gun violence like never. I believe within the city of Chicago, before we can really truly hop on anything else, we have to truly see what we can do to be proactive and hop on anything else. We have to not revert these adolescents to turn into that gun violence, to turn to violence, to turn to gun violence. That's our pandemic in Chicago. That's our social unrest in Chicago. Of course, we have others and things like that, but our social unrest right now in this city is senseless violence that goes on, and people who are dying by the bullet each week. And so there has to be something that we as leaders are called to do in this season to be able to be proactive. How can we target people who are more likely to do that? How can we grab them before they get to that, instead of be reactive and trying to be a counselor on the other side? Well, let's try to mentor them on the front side, right? Let's see what we can do. Because they know, a lot of people, the thing about Chicago, we know who it is. People know who it is, and they just don't want to speak up, or they just allow it to happen. And so our social unrest really, man, is this violence, and definitely been impacted closely to me over the last few months with the gun violence. And so it has a different effect and feel when it hits you, when it hits home, but when it hits you close in your vicinity.
So what practically, I'm from Chicago, born and raised on the West Side. Lost my younger brother in 2018 to gun violence. And you hear all the time, gun control. which I get the sensibility or the instinct to say, okay, well, what is doing the killing? What is being used to kill people? Guns. Let's take guns off the street. I think that's effective only to a certain point. I think, I've always contended, and others have contended that, yeah, guns are an issue, but criminals don't follow laws, so just making more gun laws is not going to impact the situation. So what is it legislatively? What is it legislatively that you think can be done?
Yes, I agree with you. And you being from Chicago is it's a different feel, of course, and impact. And I'm sorry to hear about your brother. Definitely sorry to hear about that, man. But you know more than anything. And I would tell people all the time who are not from this city, or not from the land, Chicagoland, that understand, like, you can take guns off the street, you can make laws as much as you want to, but that's not going to truly stop. I think we seen over a few weeks ago where Mayor Lightfoot, she said she's going to fine people who are in gangs based off, and it's just like, it just that's not going to do anything, right? And we can go into that discussion, whatever. But ultimately, when we talk about legislatively, I believe we need to, in this aspect, there needs to be some type of money funded to target adolescents at the age we get to this. I did a study. Let me back up and say I did a study. I used to work for the Kankakee County State's Attorney's Office, and one of my assignments while I was an intern was to tally up and get the statistics of people who were shooting bullets, who were shooting the guns. And the statistics that I received, I looked at the ages and looked at the time and looked at the places and whenever they happened, highlighted the things like that, is that the people who were pulling the trigger were between 15, 16, 17. And so here it is, we have this rhythm to say, okay, how can we target this area? How can we target this group age range? It seems to be happening here. I believe within the city of Chicago, there needs to be some type of legislation that is passed to where we can fund schools, programs, whatever the case, to target whatever age range is pulling these triggers, and see how we can be proactive. Maybe we need to do something for the 12, 13-year-olds, right? Before they get to 15, 16, 17, or things like that. Maybe we need to do something even younger, 9, 10-year-olds, because they're out there too, before they get to a position. So how can we get something passed so that we can truly target those on the front end? I think there's a lot of reactive stuff that we see, right? I mean, policing is reactive more so. And so a lot of times we see it on the back end. We see programs on the back end, but we need to see more programs that are passed for the city on the front end, because these offenders are young, bro. They, oftentimes we think they are older, and but these cats out here are young, who are the offenders of it. And so how can we specifically target? How can we? Here it is, as my organization, we're figuring out, how can we write curriculum? How can we be on the front side of these things, man? And that's what I believe that needs to happen. Because bro, we've tried everything. Everybody's tried everything. There's a lot of things that's been going on. There's a lot of programs already in place, but I want to see specific programs that have a specific outcome with real results, with tangible results, to say, hey, this is what we want at the end of this. This is how it's going to go in between this, and this is how we're going to start it. Instead of just saying, have programming and funding for something and they don't really use it for what it's for, because that's what a lot of organizations in this city do. There needs to be tangible things that need to be met. Not that accurate, it should be met. No, we need some tangible things that need to be met, so that we can have real numbers, and we can have real case studies to say this proves that this works or prove that it doesn't work.
I hear you. I think accountability is a big thing, particularly from elected officials, people that are there to represent or supposed to represent the people. Shifting to policing, as you mentioned, you described it so as being reactive, not proactive. Explain what you mean by that for those who probably don't agree or probably don't even understand what you mean by that. And then I have a follow-up to that.
Okay. Yeah. So you'll hear me say reactive and proactive a lot, because I believe when it comes to justice, there's a lot of work to be done on the proactive side. More work needs to be done on that. And so when we talk about policing, and basically based off of what I see and experience, and just a lot of crimes that happen are police, more so they happen and then police come, right? In terms of whatever the case may be, it's particularly, we don't see police in every aspect, right? Chicago's big. I'm only talking about Chicago. I'm not talking about any other city. I'm sure every city policing is different. So I can't speak for any other cities that I've never been a part of or been a citizen of, but I am a citizen of Chicago. I've been a citizen of other cities in the state of Illinois as well. So I've seen the difference. And there's, when police are present in certain areas on the front end, there is a lot of proactive things that don't happen because of that, right? But in the city of Chicago, there's police that are present. And a lot of times there's things that go on even while their presence is there. And so they come on the reactive side, or they allow certain things to happen, and they come in after the fact. And there's a lot of things that play into that as well, based off of what their orders are or what they're given. But many people only see officers in the aspect, whatever the case is based off of something reactive, right? We call the police, they come, they take the report, the incident happens, police show up, right after it happens. And so that's what I mean by reactive. In that definition of it. I would like to see more CPS officers, and I have seen some. I will say this, that are proactive, that are there, present, done many things around the city where they're showing their presence on purpose and things like that. But I do believe that needs to be more within our city specifically. And I've met with a lot of police officers and chiefs, and so I know their heart towards and concern in that. And so, but many people will only tell you they see the police after something happens rather than before.
That's understandable, particularly in the urban context. I think cities, the concept of community policing, in the officer who lives down the street from you, by name or whatever, that's more so of a phenomenon. You could say stereotypically, I think, in the South, but even deeper, it's a phenomenon in the suburbs, but not necessarily in the city. So how do we before we get to what defining solutions directly, like what can be done legislatively, what can be done, with this law, this policy, whatever. Bipartisan talks surrounding police reform failed on Capitol Hill last month on October 22nd. We learned, which it kind of got crowded out with other stuff that's going on. But we learned that the negotiations broke down. Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey is a Democrat, and the only Black Republican in the Senate, Tim Scott from South Carolina, announced that the talks have stopped. The negotiations have stopped. And the legislation that they wanted to pass, entitled George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which was introduced in June of 2020 and reintroduced this year, is now, the talks have settled. There's no talks. That is not actively being considered in the Senate. Therefore, it's the likelihood of it passing or making it to the president's desk to be signed. It's not going to happen, which would be another promise, or rather, initiative that President Biden, ran on as the Democratic nominee for the president. It'll be another agenda item that has basically failed. So you being in the community, on the ground, actively dedicating your life to this work, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, my reaction to that, bro, I'm gonna be a little biased here, and I'm gonna just speak, and I believe I think this is the platform to do so. It just shows, one, why I never have classified myself as a Democrat or Republican, because of that. And two, that we as citizens, specifically here it is in Chicago, have to take more initiative on our local politicians in that aspect, thinking what basically they have more change. They have more hand at change within the city more than President Biden does. Now, whoever's in office, President Biden, whoever will be in office after this, he ran on that, and let's be honest, he ran on that to get votes, right? It sounded really good, right? Because 2020, George Floyd, policing, all this other stuff, but what people fail to realize, a lot of Democrats fail to realize, or people who voted Democrat fail to realize, is simply that this bill was introduced, like you said, June 2020, and has not been passed. But the Asian American bill has been passed and was introduced earlier this year, within the same year. That's an issue, right? And he ran on this ticket to try to get our vote because of the height of 2020. I mean, everybody was talking about police reform. If you never talked about it a day in your life, you was talking about it at some point with somebody. And so it just shows, like, a lot of times politics is on our end, as being in the community, is very lazy on our end. Why? Because we don't really understand and do the research to know and to uphold the fact that we still don't have this bill passed that was introduced in 2020. And folks don't know that, right? Many people won't know that, but that tells us that we need to do a better job in holding our elected officials accountable, because we do have power. I believe there's two sides to voting. Whoever you vote, you put in office, but then on the other side, it's up to the people to hold that person accountable and to bring things up to them. A lot of people are still in seats for years, sitting on the same seat, because the people who put them in don't know that they're not doing anything. And so at some point, I'm a big advocate for voting. We've done voting rallies and we get people to the polls and things like that. But at some point, voting kind of makes us lazy in a bit, right? Once we get them in there, that's all. That's it. We're good. You know, they got to do all the work. I think we got to change the mindset. And that's what I'm beginning to see. I see more people thinking that way now because of what we have the access to, more outlets that can educate us on these laws and on these bills that are being passed. If anybody wants a good app, I look at Politiscope day to day just to stay up with it. It's a very unbiased political app that somebody created and breaks things down for you, but then also lets you know what's going on every single day in Congress. And so to be able to, I believe, to speak on behalf of community, but then even serve, there ought to be some responsibility to understand that Biden is failing us. and I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be really honest, and that doesn't mean I'm a Republican, right? Or it definitely doesn't mean I'm a Democrat. But what that says is whoever's in office, we need to hold them accountable at all costs. If they're not doing what they said they were going to do, if they ran on this ticket to get in because it sounded good, well, there ought to be something that we need to push, right? And so within the city of Chicago, let's be honest, most people aren't really educated about what's going on politically, and they have no care to it. And so when we talk about these community organizations, you know, I believe our urban reformers believe there needs to be a lot of education on that side that we can provide to be able to say, this is what's going on right now, but then also, hey, you have the opportunity to be able to say something about it in some type of way. And with Biden, I mean, let's be honest, he's been very silent about these issues, and this is the main thing he ran on, and that is an issue for me. So
I think it's I call it a political football, right? We're going to toss it back and forth till, every election cycle, seemingly every election cycle. And then once that election occurs, if we get the result we want, we'll see you again the next election. If we don't get the result we want, we may, we'll try to be some type of opposition, but it's more so like controlled opposition. Like, I think a key thing I think very few people know is that prior to the election, you had Senate Republicans who proposed a police reform bill. It dealt with things like qualified immunity. We'll get to the specifics about what you think should be done, but it got into like dealing with qualified immunity, chokeholds, a list of issues that were brought up nationally. And when Republicans had control of the Senate, they brought that bill to the table. Shockingly, they did. I was surprised. And Democrats filibustered the bill until after the election when they got power, and then the talks broke down completely. So it doesn't seem either side, and I'm neither, just like you, I'm neither Democrat or Republican. It seems like neither side is serious about this particular issue and doing something about it. What, in terms of specifics, right? Cory Booker said that, talks have broken down, but I'm willing to come back to the table. Senator Tim Scott and I are friends, and we'll come back eventually to the table at some other point. We don't know if that's next month, next year, 2 years, 3 years, the next president. We don't know when those talks will resume. But when they resume, from a federal level, I think you made the point clear. Locally, we need to hone in on elections, vote for elected officials, hold them accountable, not just think our job is done in November or whatever, whenever the election is done, but hold them accountable, show up to meetings, make our voices known, call their offices, etc. But on a federal level, right, which as time has gone on, people left or right have become more warm to this idea that there needs to be some federal action, not just state action, not even just city actions from local mayors or whatever. On a federal level, what do you think needs to be done?
Yeah, no, I think that's the main. I made a post about that about I think 4 months ago. Is that the reason why, like, until it becomes an issue to them, right, in the federal side of it, it will never, the issue will never cease to be dealt with, right? That shows to what that says to me in layman's terms is that they don't care about it. If it was that important, it will be something that was dealt with as the I can't remember the bill's name, but the Asian American bill that was passed a few months ago. That was passed, and we have to understand is that was, I think it's like 412 or something like that, but that was passed in the same year. Now, and they didn't put that off. They didn't put that off quickly. And what that does is it sends a message to Black and Brown America that in the federal stage, there is no obligation to get that bill passed, right? And I don't care how extreme it may be. Like I said, I'm gonna hound on this all the time. If we can pass the Asian American bill within months, there's no way this criminal justice reform, police reform bill, the George Floyd bill shouldn't. It's still not passed. The last time they looked at it, the last time they even spoke about it was in July. And so, we have to, here it is, as grassroots organizations, community organizations, people who care really about this. There needs to continue to be more push. Now, here it is on this side. Here's my stance on proactive and reactive. Proactive is saying, how can we get the message out now, right, before the next George Floyd unfortunately happens? Then we talking about it again, right? Because it's hype, and it's a fad. And I believe that's what we've seen. We talk about it all the time within our organization, how we've had a lot of movement. Like, we had so many people volunteering and was a part of the hype last year, right? And then now it's like it's not a priority to them, which is understandable. Everybody's not called to it, but ultimately there was a lot of hype around these issues. Even in the federal stage, it was a lot of hype about it, right? How can I make a post to make it seem like I'm for this, but actually I'm going to continue to forego this, or continue to push this off? Because guess what? They could push it off because we ain't holding them accountable, bro. That's why, they could push it off because we're not trying to push them, or even our officials that have the ability to speak on the stage, who represent Illinois, who represent DC, are not saying it because the people aren't writing letters, the people aren't petitioning, people ain't showing up to the city council meetings and saying, this is what we need for you to do in Congress, right? Our folks ain't educated enough to in that aspect to do that, or to even push them that. That's why I think we believe we need so much more done within this within the community things and things like that, even community organizers need to be more educated on how we can be able to speak to these things. I want to say this too. That just shows that we cannot allow personality to override true values when we're voting. Because the personality in terms of Biden made people believe, right? It was still, a lot of people were still slow on it, but in that, people believe, oh, he's going to get that done because he's speaking about it, and it's the fad, right? I think the height of the election debates, we've seen Biden use police reform. He used this. I mean, the reason he won is because of things like that. But then also he had a close knit because he had a lot of Republicans that were in the middle, right? He was trying to really grab them. They were close. They were like, I don't know. And he had to say the right things in order for them, because a lot of Republicans that did vote for Biden were also, they don't know too much about this police reform either. They're not really too big on this police reform. And so there was never truly a real promise to deliver that. His personality, in a sense, in the politics game, made it seem as much as so. And we as a people have not checked them on it, right? And there's a lot of things, right? The stimulus check is wonderful for a lot of people, but then when that happens, is silence in what he's doing, what he needs to do now, and that's what I have to say on that. So when it comes to the federal stage in terms of police reform, they're just showing us Black and brown people, layman's terms, are not important at the moment if they continue to push this off in certain neighborhoods and certain cities. Like I said, policing is different everywhere.
What do you want to, like, specifically, like, what do you want to see? Meaning, I want to see a law that says this. I want to see a policy that says this. What is it that you're advocating for?
Yeah.
That you would like to see pushed or passed?
Yes. Yes. So specifically in Chicago, we have pushed for the ban of no-knock warrants. We were part of, I don't know if you heard of Anjanette Young out of Chicago, who basically had a no-knock warrant. She was not killed or anything like that, but she was unclothed in her home and it was invaded. And so we helped push for that. We were a part of that legislation change in the banning of no-knock warrants within Chicago, specifically within the nation. That's what we're pushing. That's what I'm pushing, is the ban of no-knock warrants for the whole nation in terms of that, right? Breonna Taylor is the main case everybody hears about, everybody talks about in that state. In this state, she's the main reason why we're talking about no-knock warrants. And Chicago had a home one where we pushed that even harder and got that passed earlier this year. And so within the nation, I want to see that specifically, but I also want to see more accountability within the police departments, the precincts. I want to see more accountability, and not even accountability, but more in terms of stipulations for when police do things outside of the realm of what they're supposed to do, abuse of power. I want to see more accountability in that aspect. To me, at times, it's too much protection of police in terms of their job and their profession. There's too much protection that they can do so much and get away with it and still have their job in 2 months.
So would you say doing away with and modifying qualified immunity?
Say that one more time.
Would you advocate for doing away with or modify qualified immunity?
I would say more modified qualified immunity, specifically because every every profession has some type of protection for their people, plant and things like that. And I'm not talking about physical protection in terms of life, but protection in terms of job. There's something that does happen, and the profession definitely does accommodate in certain areas. But we have overboard with the police. Like, they can do almost literally anything, bro. We could and get away with it and still have their job in 2 months. Why am I saying this? Because in any other profession, when you mess up one good time, you're done. You can't. Your license is taken away, and you can't do this. You can't do that. You can't. You just can't. Excuse my outside. I'm right by the E-way if you hear that, but So yeah, I those are the two things specifically I really want to see. I just feel like they're too protected, and there's like nothing, no stipulation of what they do. They feel they can do anything and get away with it and still have their job, and that's why we see certain things happening. And so those are two things specifically. To be specific.
Yeah, I hear you.
Mhm.
Kind of wrapping up, I like to be fair and try to, dissect both sides and say, okay,
Yeah.
you think this, you think this. Where can we come together, right? And so I've heard in the last year and even beyond that, go back to 2013, 2014, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin. You've heard it all, right? And it's been a big debate, I guess you could say the last decade, particularly in the country on the public stage, right? But there are some on the other side, and the other side doesn't necessarily mean Republicans or whatever you want to call it. It just means people who are hesitant to say, I understand your grievance, I understand your issue, I understand your concern, but I don't think that's right, or I don't think we should go that far, or whatever, right? I've heard many people cite, for instance, the fact that I see what you're saying with policing, right? And I'm playing, I guess you say, devil's advocate on the other side. I see what you're saying with policing, right? I think there are cops that get a gun and a badge, they go on a power trip, and they abuse their power. There's no consequences. We need to check with that, right? I even agree we need a national registry for bad cops, right? Okay, I can see that. But, and I've had this question asked to me, I've asked this question. I'm interested in your response or your take on it. I get what you're saying with policing and police, but if you compare just by sheer numbers, right? The number of Black people killed by police compared to the number of Black people killed just by everyday civilians, be it other Black people, Hispanics, whatever the race may be. Why does it seem to be a public national outcry for the George Floyds, but we say nothing about your legend Talaferros, who was a young boy in Kansas? I think he was like 7 years old, who was shot through his window in his home. More specifically, like I've heard this number cited. They said 2019 I think is the latest data that we have in terms of police shootings from the FBI. And people have said to me, and people have said publicly, well, in 2019, 27 unarmed Black men, particularly Black men only. If you count women, it goes up to about 30, 40. But 27 unarmed Black men were killed by police. That's 2019. But in 2020, from the data we have, a Black person was killed almost every hour in this country by gun violence, by or through a gun. And they would say, you focus in on the George Floyd, which is sad, which I think no one who is sane can agree is okay, right? I think anybody who watched the video, saw it, understand what happened, says, okay, that is wrong. That was heartbreaking to watch. But you focus in on that, you get outraged about that. But your community, and I've heard this argument, is silent by and large when it comes to the fact that a Black person is killed or was killed almost every hour. Mm-hmm. It's 24 hours in a day, 365 days in a year. Do the math. That's a lot of Black people killed every hour in the most prosperous country in the world, right? What would be your response to that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of told you before. I think I kind of began it with my view is, I'll say this and I'll say it again. I agree, bro. Like, it really angers me. That's something that it burdens me. Let me say this. And even hearing about, you lost your brother to gun violence in 2018. Like, I got two younger brothers. And so for me to hear that, like, it hits me in a way that, like, because I'm seeing it. There was a 15-year-old, I went to his funeral last Friday. He used to play basketball at my church weekly. Was one of the kids killed 2 weeks ago, who went to Simeon High School. And just like, I will say, as Chicago, as a Black community, we need to speak up about what we got going on first. I will say that, yes, I will say that every single day. It pains me it does, that we will allow, people will allow these things to go. You know who's doing the shooting. You know who's riding out. You know these folks, these cats, right? And we just allow it to happen. And yes, there is more that people speak out about George Floyd, the incident, because it's a fad, because it was a trend. It was a trendy thing to do. But let's be honest, bro. People in Chicago take pride in the fact that there's a lot of violence in Chicago. Sometimes there's some people, citizens, that's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like some type of clout that people feel like they have because of the status of the city. And so because of a sense of pride in that, like, there's no sense of urgency to deal with it until it hits your house. And so I agree. I am personally, I feel a burden to figure out what needs to be done. I don't know. It's so many things people say that needs to be done. But at the end of the day, I have a heart, basically, because as a kid, I seen a kid in the casket, 15 years old, and that just does not need. Like, we need to make noise. I'm personally doing what I can to do that, to make noise about it, because guess what? That's happening in Chicago, and I have an obligation in terms of the community. I serve in Inglewood, I serve in Washington Park, and so it happens out here pretty frequently. And if we want to talk about the faith community, I'm a part of the faith community, but we have done a poor job in Chicago in trying to speak to those issues as well. And so the crazy thing about it is you have a lot of people that do feel that way, right? They have a lot of people that do feel that way, but then that's the play of the media. You're from Chicago, bro. You know all the programs that they have in the city, and people that are trying to advocate for the violence in Chicago. I say his name, Father Flake, is one of the main ones, always making a post about what's going on in terms of the gun violence. And he's all for the other stuff too, but he's like, yo, like, this is happening all the time. He's been making posts like that for years. And so until it becomes an issue for the people of Chicago, it will never become an issue to the higher ups that we see. And that's the issue, is that it's not become an issue. And we want to speak about the trends of the city, of the nation. And George Floyd became trendy, and that's why it happened the way it did. And like I said, injustice in Chicago, if you watch, whoever's watching this sees the beginning of the interview, you will hear me say that there's a lot of social unrest. There's a pandemic in Chicago that we need to deal with. And I agree, man. I think sometimes the best thing, like, I don't have an answer for it. And sometimes that's the best answer, is to be honest. Sometimes I sit at home and I'm really hurt, man. Like, to know people think it's okay, and the people just allow it. It just continues to happen rapidly to kids. 7-year-old girl got killed a few months ago. I mean, I think we all heard about the daughter who got killed in McDonald's driveway because something that the dad was into. And just the idea of that these kids leave out the house every day not knowing, right, something is going to happen. And so it shouldn't have to live like that. And so I don't know, man. It's like sometimes too, people don't like to deal with their own problems. And when we see another problem that's highlighted, we want to run to that and throw some fire and flame and gas on that. And we don't want to deal with what we got going on. And so Chicago, if y'all hear this, we need to deal with what we got going on, man. So we got to figure something out, because there's no way little kids should be gone by a bullet. They ain't have no issues with you or anything. That's just not right.
Totally get it. I actually, and I'll get into my last question on this. I was in Chicago that weekend with a 7-year-old father got shot down. I drove past it.
Wow.
And didn't know what happened until I got home and watched the news. Tragic stuff. What would you say? And I have to be honest, I don't even know if you remember this. In the heat of the moment, I misjudged the work that you do. So a lot of this interview is enlightening and giving a lot of clarity to the work that you do. I love the work that you're doing and how you're approaching the work. Because I've noticed, and I'm going to start using this terminology now, a lot of not only, I guess I can agree, policing a lot, especially in urban cities, is reactive. And I've always said that a lot of the activism is also reactive as well. And so it's refreshing to see you take a proactive role in not in the activism part of it, right? Which I think is so important. With that being said, what would you say is the most, or what is the most, from your perception, misunderstood thing about you or the work that you do?
Yeah, I think sometimes perception can be that I'll put it like this. I guess perception can be that I use other people's tragedies as a platform or things like that, or just, that's one of them. Two, not just me, any activist, right? Something happens and, they're the one that's speaking out for the family or things like that. And and so it can see that. And two, I would say that one of the things about me is that people think that I choose to do this. Like that I want to be what I am. And I believe it's not the fact that I don't want to, it's the fact that I believe I'm called to it. I believe that I was picked, designed divinely to be able to do these things and speak and have a heart for it. I will say to you all, I ain't about the hype. I think a lot of people, would think that because I was being used a lot last year. It was crazy. I was definitely on the front lines of a lot of things. Went to a lot of marches, went to a lot of things and supports and community things, and led some and had a lot of meetings with people. And it was a lot. It was a lot of stuff. And I believe that was a time to march and things like that. That was a time to do it. But now, to people that, whoever follows me, I don't know who's watching this that may follow me. But if you do, this is every day. We're meeting all the time, seeing what we could do on the front end to, we're not just about the media. We're really not about that at all. If anybody knows me, I'm an introvert. So I don't like that too much. And I try to hide in my shell, but when you do what you're called to do, people show up and they put you out there sometimes. And so, so those things, I say that I haven't heard that too personally about me, but I do know that just because of what I do, people probably feel like that. And that's okay. I get it, because I do know a lot of people who are activists are very opportunists as well. And I'm not looking to get a platform because of who I speak out for or my activism. I have other platforms elsewhere. This is just what I feel that the Lord has placed on my heart, the burden that I'm called to do, and to be able to serve people in any capacity and to reach them in some type of sort, and to just show people there's people with good hearts out here still, and that we just want to see good. And that's all, really, that's it. I really have a joy in serving people, and however I can do that is what I'm going to do. So yeah, if you got them perceptions, that's okay. That ain't me, but you just keep watching me, keep seeing me, and you'll notice me. You'll know. I think if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see on my thing, I said the revolution that will not be televised, and that's one of the main. That's something that somebody said back in the 70s. But man, that's so true. I think a lot of times we think that the revolution and the change is going to happen on this big stage, and no, it happens at home. It happens when nobody's watching. It happens on the proactive side.
Definitely. Favorite scripture?
My favorite scripture? Oh man, that's a lot. I say this. I gotta go with. It's between Psalm 23. Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. Make me lie down in green pastures. Lead me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. Or it's between Matthew. I can't remember the address of it, but I know it's in Matthew where it says, "Let your light shine, so that men will see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." So those are the two ones that I live off of, but those are the two of my favorite.
Thank you so much for talking to me. Again, this has been enlightening for me. I can't wait for people to watch this, listen to this.
Yeah, man.
I'm definitely excited about what you're doing. I think it's that proactive things. I think is so needed. So again, thank you for
Yeah,
the work that you're doing, dedicating your life to this, doing this, as well as thank you for talking to me. I appreciate it.
man. Thank you for the platform, man. Thank you for what you do. It's good to see the Chicago brother doing his thing, man. And keep doing what you're doing. And whatever you need, let me know. And whatever you need help or how we can collaborate, let me know, man. But thank you for this platform for sure.
Definitely. Thank you.
Full of good stuff, wasn't it? Full of good stuff. Again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for supporting what I do. Share this podcast. We are growing. I want to continue to grow. I want to have a diverse conversation with a diverse people, numerous different types of people. I want to do that. And I can only do that by your support, by letting other people know about this podcast, about what we do, what we talk about. If I'm not mistaken, we are currently the only podcast that is free game. What does that mean? We talk about any and everything at all times. There are other podcasts that have a niche, they have a specific target, and they always rebound on certain topics. We do that too, but we want to bring everyone to the middle to talk. That's the purpose of this. Changing the narrative of what you think about those you feel are on the other side. Again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Changing the Narrative with me, your host, Jay Shakur.